Our News on Terror segment tonight. President Obama promised he'd close the military prison at Guantanamo Bay before he left office. Well, he has 11 days left. He hasn't done it. He's not going to do it. And this is a good thing. But the part of the story we rarely hear is the fact that Obama has released 75% of these prisoners. Most of them are terrorists. And guess where they go after they're set loose? That's right, back to the battlefield. Here with me today, senior writer for the Washington Free Beacon, Adam Kredo. Adam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Adam, I think it's no secret that many of the terrorists who were detained in Guantanamo Bay, once they're released, they go back to the battlefield. But give us some practical numbers here. How many are we talking?
We're talking scores, actually, and it's doubled in recent years. I believe the figure is since July of 2015. There's very simple math here. The more people you release from Gitmo, the more they're seen returning to the battlefield. And that just isn't soft support. That also includes hard support. That is literally going onto a battlefield armed with a weapon and being killed while doing that. Other numbers of them are also, of course, arrested behind the scenes for returning to terrorism. I think there's a very simple guideline we have to look at here. When we try to send some of these Gitmo inmates back to other countries, often those countries will say, no, we don't want them, because they know that person's going to return to terrorism. I think that's all you really need to know about the failure of the Obama administration's policy on this. All they're trying to do is clean out the prison so they can close it, but in the rush to get rid of these people, you're letting bad guys back into the world.
Right, it's passing the buck, the way I see it. When the Obama administration gives these detainees back to countries, the countries don't have a plan of how they're going to keep track of these prisoners, whether or not they're in prison or just living in that nation. There's no enforcement mechanism here. The Obama administration cannot be so naive that they do not understand the rate at which these terrorists return to the battlefield.
No, I actually don't think they're naive about it. I think they know very well, but once the problem is off your hands, it's wiping kind of clean and turning your back. But you're also right about the other nations, and that's where it gets really tricky. How many terrorists can you put back into the Middle East, back into countries, and expect them to behave? They're not going to reintegrate into society. You're not going to see these people become producers and helpful individuals in society. They know terrorism. They've been held in a U.S. prison camp. They're angry about it. Necessarily, they're going to return to terrorism. I don't think it's very difficult for us, even outside of the intelligence community, to understand that very simple truth. But the Obama administration, in its rush and its ideological bent to close this prison down, does not care. They just want to get them out the doors.
Right, it's almost like the Obama administration is enabling the terrorist propaganda in the first place. When these radical Islamists claim that Gitmo is their recruiting tool, well, President Obama is allowing it to be a recruiting tool, because when you release these people back, they go to the battlefield, like you said, angry because they've been held in a military prison by their enemy for years and years, sometimes decades. Of course that's going to be used as a recruiting tool, but he's the one enabling them to actually use it as such. Adam, I want to go over a couple of these numbers that I have in front of me here. This is the number since 2009, so that would be about 7 years now, 7 years worth of freed former detainees. 676 have been released. A total of 118 have been confirmed of having re-engaged in terror attacks in that amount of time. And that's just confirmation. We don't even know about the ones that are possibly or probably. These are just the ones we have absolute confirmation about. 118.
Yeah, that's right. So that number really just scratches the surface. It's a baseline, really, to look at the situation with Gitmo. I want to go back to one thing you said, though, about this being a propaganda tool or a recruiting tool. It very much is, and that is because of the way the Obama administration discusses it. The Obama administration will say they're embarrassed of our government. They're embarrassed of our U.S. for running Gitmo. I can tell you, I've been to Guantanamo several times. These people are lucky to be held there. If they were in any other country, the conditions would not be so nice. I've seen the easy chairs and lazy boys. I've seen the library and the great selection of books and movies these inmates have. I've seen the rec yards that they get to spend time in. Any other country would not treat you nearly as well as we have here in Gitmo. The Obama administration likes to make pretend it's a boogeyman, that it's a CIA black site. It is not at all. I've been there. I've seen it in person and can tell you that.
Right, and then the Obama administration using that narrative that it's such a terrible place, that torture happens there. They talk about that. The Obama administration talks about their shame at Guantanamo Bay more than they talk about the terrible crimes committed by the people who were there, the crimes that put them there in the first place. Adam, let me ask you this question. When in regards to these, it's a 30% rate of return, by the way, for these terrorists that are going back to the battlefield. Do we have any proof that they've killed Americans since they've been released?
I'm not sure if we have the hard proof, but I think that it would be very fair to say that they're contributing to an environment and a situation on the ground that endangers American troops, endangers American assets. Terrorism never happens in a bubble. It's not an isolated thing. It permeates throughout the region where we are stationed. So I think it's very fair to say that the people we once picked up for this crime against us are returning to it with the goal to hurt us. That's something I think we conclude very readily from these statistics. The other thing that I would point out, and I would recommend that everybody go to the New York Times. They have a dossier on this. It's called the Gitmo Files. They have a record of every single person that has passed through that prison. I would urge people to read what these people are accused of, from killing Americans to making bombs to being architects and funders of the 9/11 terror attacks. What we found these people doing is very, very bad, and there's a reason that they were put in Gitmo. I think that we have to remember that history when we look at trying to close this prison. These are the worst of the worst offenders, honestly.
Right, and I think we need to remember that it's a military prison too, and that these crimes committed by the detainees, by the prisoners, are crimes that would be committed by enemy combatants, not crimes that are committed domestically within the United States, citizen to citizen. These are acts of war that these detainees have been caught doing. Like I said at the beginning in the introduction, Adam, this is a broken promise of President Obama's. He's been talking about closing Gitmo for years. He hasn't done it. I mean, he has 11 days left. He doesn't have time to do it. In my opinion, that's a good thing, although what he's doing is just as bad as closing it, because he's endangering Americans by allowing these people back into other nations to plot their terror, even if he's not bringing them here to our shores. What do you expect from a Trump administration on Guantanamo Bay?
Honestly, I expect the prison to remain open. I never believed that the Obama administration would honestly be able to close it. Even if they had evacuated everyone out of there, we still have people like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's being tried in a military court currently. You can't just let this individual go. In fact, it was the idea of the Obama administration to have these hearings at Gitmo so as not to bring them over here. I believe at the time, all those years back, we were ready to get a guilty plea from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. That's no longer on the table, and this trial is going to drag on for quite a while. In terms of the Trump administration, look, we're still waging a war. Let's not make any bones about it and not be under any illusion. We are still fighting a global war on terrorism. When we find these people on the battlefield, we have a very, very safe spot to put them. It's right there at Guantanamo Bay, and I expect Trump to make use of this resource.
Right, and well, he should, as long as this war keeps on waging, like you said. Adam, we're out of time for today, but thank you so much for being here. It's always great to talk to you. All right, guys, we've got to take a short break. Tweet me in the meantime, Liz_Wheeler, and we'll be right back.